The evening sun cast long shadows across the white walls of our home, the kind of house that looked like it had been pulled straight from a magazine, pristine, modern, and meticulously maintained. Everything about it, from the sleek furniture to the faint hum of jazz music during dinner, was curated to perfection. It was the kind of life that seemed effortless to outsiders, but I knew better. Keeping up appearances took work. I had always believed that my wife, Lauren, and I had built something solid, a marriage rooted in trust, mutual respect, and an unshakable bond. For 10 years, I never questioned it, never questioned her. But that night, as I pulled into the driveway, something felt different. It wasn't anything obvious. The house looked the same, the porch light flickering on as my car rolled to a stop. But there was a subtle shift in the air, something intangible that sent a ripple of unease through me. Stepping inside, I found Lauren sitting on the back patio, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. Her dark blonde hair shimmered like spun gold, catching the last rays of the day. She was holding her phone, her fingers moving rapidly across the screen, her lips curled into a soft smile. It was a smile I had seen 1,000 times before, but somehow, I knew it wasn't meant for me. I cleared my throat, watching as she jumped, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. She quickly flicked her phone screen off and placed it face down on the table beside her before turning to me with a carefully composed expression. "Hey, babe," she greeted casually, as if nothing had happened. I narrowed my eyes slightly. "Didn't expect me home this early, huh?" She let out a soft laugh, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "No, just a little surprised. Thought you were working late." "Finished early," I said simply, stepping closer. "Figured I'd surprise you." "That's sweet," she murmured, but there was a tightness in her voice, something barely perceptible in her green eyes. I leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead, but my mind was already spinning. Why had she hidden her phone? Why had she reacted like that? I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe she had been planning a surprise for me. Our anniversary was coming up, after all. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, that whisper of unease wouldn't fade. Over dinner, I watched her carefully. She laughed at all the right moments, smiled when she was supposed to, engaged in conversation like everything was normal. And yet, there was something guarded about her, as if she was hyper-aware of the phone sitting on the kitchen counter, lighting up with notifications she pointedly ignored. And then came the moment that shattered everything. After dinner, Lauren excused herself to take a shower, leaving her phone unattended. It sat there, screen glowing softly, beckoning me. My stomach tightened. A part of me screamed that this was a breach of trust, that I shouldn't invade her privacy. But another part, the part that felt like survival, told me I had to know. With slightly trembling fingers, I reached for the device. The screen lit up as I tapped it, revealing a new message. "Can't wait for tonight. Just us. Only the chosen ones." My breath hitched. A cold, hollow feeling spread through my chest, leaving me frozen. My brain refused to process the words. Just us. Only the chosen ones. Who was she meeting? And why did every fiber of my being scream that something was terribly, terribly wrong? The sound of running water filled the silence as I carefully placed her phone back where I had found it. I stepped away, my heart pounding in my ears. For 10 years, I had believed my marriage was unbreakable. That Lauren was my partner in everything. But now, with the weight of that single message crushing down on me, I was left wondering, had she ever really been mine at all? The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our suburban home, casting golden streaks across the polished hardwood floors. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air, but the usual warmth I felt in moments like this was gone. I sat at the kitchen island, watching Lauren move about the room with effortless grace. She hummed softly to herself as she scrolled through her phone between sips of coffee, her long auburn hair cascading over one shoulder. Her silk robe was loosely tied at the waist, a picture of ease and comfort. But I knew better now. Something was different about her. Maybe it was the way her fingers tapped idly against the rim of her coffee cup, or how she kept glancing at her phone only to turn the screen away. Maybe it was just the fact that I had read that message. Whatever it was, it gnawed at me. "You're in a good mood this morning," I said, keeping my tone light, forcing a smile as I stirred my coffee. Lauren looked up at me, her expression unreadable for a split second before she flashed a smile. It was a little too perfect, too practiced. I am, she admitted, biting her lips slightly as if suppressing some secret excitement. It's going to be a fun night. A fun night. My grip on the coffee mug tightened. Oh yeah? I asked casually. What's the occasion? She leaned against the counter, eyes sparkling. I told you, remember? I'm hosting a girls' night. Just a few close friends, some wine, nothing crazy. She had mentioned it earlier in the week, but I hadn't paid much attention at the time. Now, the words rang in my ears differently. Something about the way she said it felt off. Too light-hearted. Too rehearsed. Sounds nice, I said, carefully gauging her reaction. Who's coming? She hesitated. It was only for a fraction of a second, but I caught it. Oh, you know, she said with a nonchalant wave of her hand. The usual. Emily, Rachel, Vanessa. She trailed off too quickly. I nodded slowly, taking a sip of my coffee. Right, I murmured. A lie. A lie to cover a lie. I could feel it now, the weight of unspoken truths pressing between us. Lauren stretched her arms above her head, the movement deliberately slow, as if trying to distract me. I should go pick up a few things for tonight, she said breezily. Then, her eyes met mine, and her voice softened. You'll be gone before it starts, right? There it was. That careful, almost too casual question. She was making sure I wouldn't be around. My heart pounded in my chest, but my face remained impassive. Yeah, I said, keeping my voice steady. I have that early flight tomorrow. I'll probably head to a hotel for the night so I don't have to rush in the morning. Her smile widened, relief flickering across her features. Perfect, she said lightly, kissing me on the cheek before grabbing her keys and phone. I'll see you later, then. And just like that, she was gone. I sat there for a long time, staring at the untouched breakfast in front of me. Then, slowly, I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened a search tab. If Lauren had secrets, I was about to find out exactly what they were. And she would never see it coming. The night air was thick with tension, pressing down on me like an invisible weight as I sat in my car, parked just a few houses down from my own. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. From this distance, my house looked exactly as it always did, warm, inviting, the very picture of suburban perfection. But I knew better now. I had spent the entire afternoon digging, searching, and what I had found made my stomach churn. Lauren's so-called girls' night. It wasn't a girls' night at all. With a swipe of my finger, my phone screen lit up, opening the security feed from the hidden cameras I had installed months ago, cameras I had never actually needed. Until now. A shiver ran down my spine as I tapped into the live feed from the living room. What I saw made my stomach drop. The house, our house, was filled with people. But not women. Not the usual group of friends Lauren had name-dropped so casually that morning. Men. Strangers. Lauren sat in the center of it all, her silk dress hugging her figure as she leaned in close to a man I had never seen before. Her laugh rang out over the low hum of conversation, her body language intimate, familiar. The way she tilted her head, the way her fingers grazed his arm, it was all too natural. Too practiced. My jaw clenched as I switched to another camera angle. The dining room. Another group of men, all dressed in expensive suits, their watches gleaming under the soft chandelier light. They sipped whiskey, speaking in low, confident voices, completely at ease in my home, as if they had been here before. How many times had this happened? How many nights had I kissed Lauren goodbye, believing she was having wine and gossip with her friends while she entertained them instead? A bitter taste rose in my throat. But even through the anger, I knew one thing: I wouldn't act on emotion. Not yet. Bursting in there, demanding answers, throwing accusations? That was too easy. Too impulsive. And I had no intention of letting her, or any of them, walk away from this unscathed. I took a deep breath, forcing the rage to settle into something colder. Something more useful. If Lauren thought she could do this behind my back, if she thought she could lie to my face and keep up this charade, she was about to learn just how badly she had underestimated me. A plan was already forming in my mind. Slow. Precise. Unforgiving. I closed the security feed, set my phone aside, and leaned back in my seat, letting a slow, deliberate smile curl at the edges of my lips. The game had changed. And now, I was the one making the next move. The night was alive with the low hum of conversation, the clink of expensive glassware, and the faint rhythm of ambient music. From the outside, our home still looked like a sanctuary, a place of warmth and stability. But inside, it was a different story. Inside, it was a stage, a carefully orchestrated performance where everyone played their part in a lie. But tonight, that lie would crumble. I moved through the shadows, unseen, my heart steady, my breath even. The betrayal that had burned like fire in my chest had cooled into something far more dangerous, a calm, calculated resolve. My friend Tyler, a private investigator I had called in as soon as I suspected something, had done his job well. The guests inside weren't just random men. They were men with secrets. Men with everything to lose. David Langston, a high-profile attorney known for making problems disappear for wealthy clients. Richard Cole, a real estate mogul with a wife and 3 children, whose pristine reputation would shatter if anyone knew how he spent his evenings. Senator Ethan Graves, the same man who preached about family values on national television, now sitting comfortably in my house, indulging in the very sins he condemned. And at the center of it all, Lauren. I clenched my jaw as I watched the live feed on my phone, her voice drifting through the hidden microphones I had planted. "Relax," she was saying, her tone smooth, dripping with confidence. "He trusts me completely. He has no idea." Laughter. Low, knowing chuckles from the men around her. I exhaled slowly through my nose. Not yet. I had spent the last few hours pulling every thread, making sure every piece was in place. The files were ready, screenshots, photos, transaction records. I had compiled everything. But the true masterpiece, it wasn't just the exposure. It was fear. Not the fear of losing money or status. That would be too simple. No, I wanted them to feel something deeper. The kind of fear that clawed at your chest, that made you question everything, that turned laughter into silence. I checked my watch. 5 minutes. Inside, they were still laughing. Still drinking. Still so sure of their control over the situation. They had no idea their night of indulgence was about to turn into a nightmare. At exactly 11:45 p.m., the house was plunged into complete darkness. A sharp gasp sliced through the air, followed by the clatter of glass shattering on the floor. The murmurs started immediately, confused, uncertain. Then came the nervous chuckles, forced and brittle. "Relax," one of the men muttered. "It's just a power outage." A woman, one of the few present, let out a high-pitched giggle. "Maybe the universe wants us to light some candles. Make it more romantic." Lauren's breath hitched. I could almost see her reaching for her phone, her fingers tightening around it. No signal. The room fell into a thick, uneasy silence. And then, the speakers crackled to life. But instead of music, it was my voice. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the real party." Lauren froze. The guests turned toward the center of the room as the screen above the fireplace flickered to life. The footage was grainy, but clear. Clips, stitched together like puzzle pieces, began to play. Lauren, her lips curling into flirtatious smiles. Lauren, her hands lingering on unfamiliar arms. Lauren, whispering into the ear of a man who was not her husband. Then, the camera panned. The men in the room. Moments stolen from the night. Clandestine whispers. Touches that lasted too long. Drinks shared over secretive glances. Then another cut. One by one, the guests appeared on screen, but this time, the setting was different. Hotel lobbies. Shadowed corners of upscale bars. Meetings behind closed doors. A politician known for championing traditional values, now caught in a compromising embrace. A businessman with a mistress, laughing over a glass of wine as he texted his unsuspecting wife. A high-profile lawyer exchanging money with a man known for handling dirty work. The room turned to ice. Someone cursed under their breath. Another guest staggered backward, gripping the edge of a chair as if it could anchor him to reality. The weight of exposure crashed down on them like an avalanche. And then, the final image. Me. Standing just outside the doorway. The front door swung open. And there I was. I stepped inside with the measured calm of a man who knew he had already won. Lauren's eyes widened, her face pale under the dim glow of the screen. "Max," she breathed. I lifted a hand, and the room silenced instantly. My gaze swept across the crowd, lingering on each guest just long enough to let them feel the weight of what I knew. "I imagine you're all wondering what's happening," I said smoothly. "Let me make it simple." I gestured toward the screen, where their secrets looped over and over again. "Tonight, you thought you were untouchable," I continued. "You thought secrets were safe in the dark." I took a slow step forward. "But the thing about the dark—" My voice dropped, just enough to make them lean in. "It never stays that way for long." A man near the bar swallowed hard. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tight with barely concealed fear. I smirked. "Oh, I already have what I want." A ripple of dread passed through the room. "You, on the other hand," I said, "have a lot to lose." Silence. "You see," I continued, my tone almost thoughtful, "I didn't come here to fight. I didn't come here to throw a tantrum, to shout, or to throw punches." I nodded toward the table, where a man in a suit stepped forward and set down a briefcase. Inside, files, documents, screenshots, proof. "Inside this case," I said, "are records of every dirty deal, every affair, every little sin that you all thought you had buried. And if sent to the right people—" I let the implication hang. Lauren's breath hitched. "Max," she whispered, taking a hesitant step forward. "Please. We can talk." I turned to her, my expression unreadable. "Talk," I repeated, tilting my head slightly. "Like how you talked to them. Like how you lied to me." She flinched. I let the silence stretch, let them marinate in their own fear. Then, finally, I exhaled slowly. "I'm not a monster," I said. "So I'm giving you all a choice." I took another step forward. "You can walk out of here tonight and pretend none of this ever happened. Live with the knowledge that at any moment I could press send and turn your world upside down." I let the words sink in. "Or—" I didn't have to finish the sentence. The weight of the ultimatum was suffocating. The guests exchanged panicked glances. Some had already inched toward the door, while others stood frozen, their minds racing through damage control scenarios. Lauren's lips trembled. "Max, I held up a hand. "No need to decide now," I said coolly. "I have time." And then, without another word, I turned on my heel and walked toward the door. My silence was more terrifying than any outburst could have been. The night had ended. But for them, the nightmare was just beginning. The morning air was crisp, the kind that carried the scent of last night's rain. The city skyline stretched before me, bathed in the golden hues of the rising sun. It should have been an ordinary morning, just another in the endless cycle of days. But today was different. Today I was free. I sat on a weathered bench near the river, my suitcase beside me. The leather handle felt smooth under my fingertips, but I held it loosely, without attachment. It wasn't the contents that mattered. Clothes, belongings, they were just things. The real baggage, the invisible weight I had carried for so long, that had been left behind. Along with her. My phone buzzed on the wooden bench beside me. I glanced at the screen. Lauren. She had called all night. Text after text. At first, frantic apologies. Then pleas. Then anger. Now, silence. Except for this last, desperate attempt. I watched the screen for a moment, her name glowing against the dark background. A name I had once spoken with warmth, with love. Now it felt foreign. Like a ghost from another life. One I had no intention of resurrecting. I let the call ring out. The buzzing faded into nothingness. I imagined her now, sitting in the wreckage of the night before. Alone. Her perfect little world shattered beyond repair. The house, once a pristine showcase of wealth and security, would still be in disarray. The remnants of expensive wine, fine perfume, and whispered betrayals now mingling with the stench of humiliation. The guests, her so-called friends, had fled in disgrace. Their perfect lives unraveled at my hands. They had all played their games in the shadows, convinced their secrets would stay buried. But last night, I had torn down their illusions, stripped away their masks, and forced them to face the truth. No violence. No yelling. Just cold, calculated revelation. And that had been enough. A sharp gust of wind sent ripples across the water, and I breathed it in. Fresh air. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. A boarding announcement crackled through the airport speakers behind me. My flight would be leaving soon. No more second-guessing. No more hesitation. The life I had built, the one I had thought was unbreakable, was gone. But in its place stood something far greater. A second chance. I reached into my coat pocket, pulling out my wedding ring. The metal was cold between my fingers, dull in the morning sun. Once it had symbolized love, devotion, an unbreakable bond. No, it was nothing more than a relic of a past I no longer wished to carry. Without a second thought, I flicked it into the river. The small splash barely disturbed the surface. But to me, it was deafening. A quiet, final punctuation mark on a chapter that no longer belonged to me. I stood, picking up my suitcase, and turned toward the airport entrance. No regret. No sadness. Only the steady pulse of anticipation for what lay ahead. For the first time in years, I wasn't a man burdened by betrayal. I was a man stepping into the unknown, on my terms. And that, I realized with a quiet smile, was the greatest victory of all. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.